Okay, hello everyone, and welcome back to World of Tanks, and I'm basically going to be discussing, does the 38H still have it? Is it in respect to, is this thing now redundant since the update of the French tanks coming into Blitz? Personally, I do not think it is. Let me know what you think down in the comments, but I do not think this thing is in any way redundant now that the D1 has come into the game in the French tanks. Mostly because it still has armour. None of these stats have changed, only the D1's come in and changed it all around. The D1 has got a good gun, don't get me wrong. This thing has got 40mm of armour. That's real tier 2 French tank armour. The D1 has got good turret armour, but the hull armour not quite so much. Whereas this thing, well, if this Panzer II decides to shoot at us, then you'll see what I mean. This T-26, he's got a gun. All of them have got guns, but he's got an autocannon. As you can see, he's going bang, 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 and I'm just shooting him up, inflicting mass damage. This Panzer II, if I angle myself to him, he won't be able to do anything. As you can see, he has not got any chance of doing any damage to me, because this thing has got 40mm of armour all round. The only weak spot is really the driver's viewport at the front of the hull, but well, he's got an autocannon on him, so yeah, good luck to him penetrating with 39mm of penetration. Really, Panzer IIs can't do anything to this tank. Unlike the D1. The D1 has got weak spots. Obviously, everyone knows that it's got weak spots. Hey, Panzer II dead. Everyone knows that the Panzer II has got weak spots. Everyone knows that the D2 has got weak spots. The D2 has got actually pretty big weak spots when you think about it, whereas the 38H doesn't really. I'm not even too sure if the driver's viewport even is a weak spot. But there's just so many good things about this tank that make it special. It's got a whole bundle of armour on it. The gun is decent enough. It feels like a tank. It's just big, slow. It's a 38H. The D2 has got a good gun on it, most definitely. It's got... Oh, I hit that. It's got... It has got... good penetration for the gun. Yes. Yeah. Okay. It's retraining that thing now. So yeah, the D2 has got good penetration. 46 penetration really is good, but 38H has only got 5 less than that. Plus, this thing does a whole load more damage with its shells, almost double that of the D1. Oh, tier 3s. Yes, excellent. Because I have a mission to complete with tier 3s. But yeah, the D1 has got an autocannon. And the penetration's good, but the average damage is underwhelming. 25. It's not great, but then that's for balancing issues mostly. But with the D1, that gun is good when it's actually bursting out damage in 6 seconds, but then the 8-second reload leaves you vulnerable. And that's where the problems come with the D1, which is that D1 has got a good... it's got a good gun, most definitely, but when you're reloading, that's when it's vulnerable, because unlike this thing, the Micro Mouse, it doesn't really have the armor to hold its own when it's getting shot at, because this thing's got 40mm all around, as I keep saying. Look at that zoom. And what that means is that if you're getting shot at, there's a good chance it will bounce, because 40mm of armor at tier 2 is good. Tier 3 maybe not so much, but... hello, tier team. But as you can see, we're still bouncing things from like that Chiha, whereas the D2 would have no chance of bouncing. There we go, bounced it again. Now if I was in a D2 and I wasn't able to fire back at this guy and I was reloading, I would be having problems because I can't fight back at him. He's shooting at me, I can't shoot at him, whereas this thing is just a constant damage output every 3.6 seconds. And that's the problem really with any autoloaders in general, inherent autoloader problems. It's okay, he's got the 6-pounder. Fine. Oh, come on, seriously. Yeah, so the D2 has got a good gun, but the 38H has got a more useful gun if you get in tier 3 situations such as this. The armor is still decent enough, and the... Come on, BT7. Oh, dear. And they're both immobile tanks, really. However, the 38H has just got better armor to deal with that immovability, because you may be immobile but you can bounce things, whereas the D1 or even this D2 have got problems with that because 30mm isn't good, really. The Panzer II makes it work because it's got sloped armor, really, on the front, whereas these things, well, look at that, that's pretty flat. And with the 38H, it's thicker, plus it's rounded and everything, so it's actually thicker than 40mm. Whereas that, it's really 30, as in just 30. There's no real sloping on it. The D2 has got sloping, or sorry, the D1 has got sloping, which makes it more effective, but it's got those big glaring weak spots, whereas this thing, I'm not too sure if the frontal driver's viewport really is a weak spot. I mean, the 38H has been in the game for longer, obviously, but people still don't really know what to do to counter it. They know that they can drive around it, but even if they do drive around it, they've still got the old problem of 40mm of armor, because there isn't really a weak spot. 40mm is 40mm, any way you look at it. Things like BT2s, T26s, Panzer IIs, anything with autocannons, they've all got problems actually killing this thing, because T26s will bounce off, BT2s, they'll bounce off, Panzer IIs, they'll bounce off, and of course they're all autocannons, so they don't really have the accuracy to actually aim for weak spots. Whereas you, in your D1, they can easily just sort of blaze away at you and do damage to you, albeit slowly, but they'll still do damage over time, and that's the thing. It has got the HP advantage over the 38H. The 38H does have a very small amount of HP for its tier. I mean, that M2 Light has got the same HP as this thing. So I mean, yeah, it still isn't very good amount of HP. Whereas the D2, it's got a huge swathe of hit points in comparison, but it'll lose them a lot quicker than you will in the 38H. Of course, if you get cornered by someone with good penetration, such as a tank destroyer or a tier 3, you'll lose your HP very quickly in this thing. But there's still the occasional bounce, as you saw from that Chiha. If I was in the D2, all of those shots would have hit, and I would probably have been dead earlier than I otherwise was when I made that play to try and hit that T18. But as it happens, my shot bounced somehow, even though I was aiming at the upper glacis. But no. So yeah, the armor is just better on this tank. The penetration is slightly less, but the average damage is better. It's more accurate as well. It may not be the most accurate, but it is more accurate than the D2. And then we come to the good thing about the D2, which is that the turret armor is still 40, and the turret armor is probably stronger than the 38H. How can that be? They're both the same thickness. Well, 38H's turret, as you can see right there, is pretty clear cut as to what it looks like, whereas the D2's turret armor, well, that's a bit of a hodgepodge of just random things they decided to bolt on and weld onto the D2. Or the D1, sorry. Which means that its turret is a very funny looking thing to try and get to. Whereas this thing, if you've got 40mm of penetration, you can probably overmatch that on this tank because, well... Ow, okay. Because, well... Look at it, it doesn't really have much sloping on that turret, and it's pretty flat. Plus, it's a pretty easy thing to hit because D1 has got a funny looking turret, does it not? And well, yeah, that's where the problems. Well, that's where the D1 claims some ground back over this tank because it's got a better turret armor. If you can go hull down in the D2, you will be pretty good, pretty set really, until you have to move out of that position. But other than that, yeah. So, in conclusion, really, I still believe that this thing is a better tank than the D2, or the D1 rather. Because the armor's better, the armor profiling is better, the gun is better in some respects, but really you can't make that many assumptions over them, because the 25mm cannon is has got its good points, as does this. This has got its good points as well. Oh, come on. The only problem is if you're facing off against another French tank of a higher tier, such as that Panzer S-35. But well, the guns are subject to opinion, but the armor you can't take away. The armor is much better. The armor is much better than the D2. The HP is less, but well, when you're facing off in that situation, there's no real way you can win with the HP difference there. But I had a better chance of surviving than a D1, and that's what it comes down to, really, survivability. Can you survive as long as you can in a D1 than you can in a 38H? And the answer to that is probably no. You have more HP, but the armor has got bigger weak spots, and that's what I keep saying, which is the weak spots. It's got much bigger weak spots. And there's not really much else I can say that won't be repeating what I've already said. Yeah, well, he's dead. And that is that the 38H is the better tank, I think, of the two. Subject to opinion will change. There are good points about both of them, there are bad points about both of them. But for me, the 38H still has got the edge over the D1, and this D2 is probably wishing that he had 40mm of armor about now. Well, I'm not too sure of the actual armors of the D2, but from the looks of it, that M2 Light is having problems. Panzer II isn't really bothering. Let's leave him there and check out the D2 actually. Let's see. D2. Well, he has got 40mm all round, alright, fair enough. But it's only at tier 3 that they have got 40mm all round. I mean, have a look at this. The turret of this thing is... wow. Look at that. What is that? That's not a turret, that's an alien. So, the turret is definitely better than this, but the armor... that's a weak spot, that's a weak spot from the front, turn it to the side, that's a weak spot, turn it to the other side, that's a weak spot, from the front, that's a weak spot, that's good. From the front, that's good, from the side, that's a weak spot, from the rear, that's a weak spot. Eh. It's just an all-round worse tank for me. 38H is fun, and it's the better tank, I'm thinking. So yeah. Does the 38H have its place in Blitz still? Yes, is the answer for me. So thank you for watching.